Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. On a single snowy day in a Midwest hospital room, a palliative care doctor meets with a series of dying patients and their families. Among them are a farmer who refuses to accept his failing body, an English teacher clinging to her student future, and a young electrical line worker who has cancer, and so much more. It is a very, very powerful film. It is called Winter Hymns, and we're joined today by the director and writer of the film, Nathan Deming. Nathan, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thanks for having me. Very glad to be here.
This is a very daring film because it takes place over one day, multiple of actors who we've probably not seen in before, and talking about palliative care, which is basically end of life. So putting all of that on the table for people to know, what inspired you to make this movie? Because it works so beautifully. My hat's off to you and your ability to make this all work so well. But what inspired you to do this?
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. Yeah, I love the word daring. On the face of it, a simple movie. It's longer and it's big. And we kept joking while we were making it. It's like I wanted to make Lawrence of Arabia in one room, or I wanted to make an epic just of emotions and in one room. And like, what's more emotional than death and dying? So the film though was inspired by my dad. My dad became a palliative care doctor in the last decade or so of his career. And at the start of it, I wasn't really familiar with what palliative care was. It literally means care without a cure. It's like a growing part of the hospital to kind of be conversation based and address issues, let patients know what their options are, right? Like the oncologist says you need to do either this treatment or this treatment, but also you're 89. Let's have a conversation about what your quality of life is like. But what got my antenna up the more I listened to it was realizing like how much of it was just talking about life and that there's family members there and that what a crazy environment that people are processing their entire lives in that room. They're processing their most important relationships. Like, what can we learn from being with those people? What can we see of ourselves in them? Once I just got into it, I was like, oh, there's so much here to make a movie about.
I couldn't agree more. And the same sort of progression of thought that you were just describing is what occurred to me watching the film was it may not sound like what it ends up being, but boy, I'm so glad you took that journey because it really, really pays off. There's a filmmaker who hasn't gotten a lot of notoriety, a fantastic filmmaker, and your film reminds me of him and his work. Patrick Wang has done a number of films, In the Family, The Grief of Others, The Bread Factory. And one of the strengths of his work, and it's in this film as well, is we have time to sit with these characters. We have time to get a little bit of a history of, and over the course of these conversations, we get to understand their motivations, their fears, their aspirations. It's brave of you to trust this process and understand, have enough faith in your writing to be able to feel like this is something that we can really make work. So that is what comes across to me. It is over the course of one day. And while I'm watching it, I don't want to go on too much further because I guess I could keep going, but what is striking to me is where you're watching her work and talking to these people, how much can one person take in the
Yeah.
course of one day?
Yeah.
And knowing that she does this on a regular basis. That's another dimension of this film. But let's just go back and talk about your trust in putting these people in a room and allowing them to really inhabit these characters.
That's what opened up the whole idea to me, honestly, because when I got interested in the topic, I wrote a couple drafts that were kind of like a more normal movie, I guess. I started writing this all before COVID, and like was doing a lot of research. And so then I was I made it an arc for the doctor, an arc for the nurse, and you follow the doctor home and you see her have a glass of wine with her husband and they talk about inane stuff. And eventually I just got obsessed with, okay, that's all fluff, obviously, and that can be great fluff when it works. But in this case, I thought, what an interesting way to just, the characters are in limbo. They're between life and death. There's so many reasons to just be in the room. And then also I felt like it did all these things I wanted to, almost the inherent spirituality of the piece, or whatever you want to call it, which is that suddenly the human face is the landscape of the movie and their soul is the landscape because each person that's coming in is sitting down and bearing their soul pretty much, or hiding it in specific ways. So that all became very fascinating. And the moment you cut outside of it, you lose that power you have just by the trick of being in the room. And I remember when I was doing prep, I don't know why this concept was so hard for people to wrap their minds around. They like every single person during prep was like, right, so when are we getting a shot of the outside of the hospital? Or, are we at least going to get the doctor driving up? And, it is true. Like My Dinner with Andre has that fantastic sequence in the beginning, but you also need that for that movie to work. You need to know the anticipation of his conversation with Andre. Nobody believed me. And then, so I was very excited to show them, here's how it works. And it's starting from that opening shot of just, you can't even make out what the room is yet, just the
Right.
pre-dawn
Right.
daylight drifting in, and then the janitor comes in. And yeah, so it was honestly, it's also just one of those creative things where it's like once you commit to something, it unlocks so much because you're like, aside from all the themes and stuff I find interesting, how do I keep an audience interested for a couple hours in one room? It was such a fun challenge.
The linchpin in the film's Colleen Madden. Where did she become part of this in this process of figuring out if I can hold people's attention for that amount of time in one room? Because not only does she have this wonderful face, it's stoic, it's empathetic, her ability to kind of be able to navigate this very, very fraught situation. When did she come into this process? Because it feels like if it wasn't her, it had to be somebody equally compelling to make this work. How did she come into this? And at what point did you say she can hold this movie?
The other story of how this film came to be was that last year I got fairly involved with working to pass film and TV incentives in my home state of Wisconsin. Afterwards, wanting to kind of, I had met so many people and I wanted to showcase how much acting talent there was in the state. Went back to my shelf and I was like, oh my God, this idea I love is just sitting there, Winter Hymns. Let me see what I would need. There's two things. I only needed two things. I needed a room that would be perfect, a medical room that I needed Colleen because I knew Colleen from American Players Theater, which is a pretty well-respected theater troupe in Wisconsin and Spring Green, where Paul Yesen is in Franklin. And they actually just won a Tony Award this year, which I think shows like the caliber of their acting talent. But anyways, I grew up watching her, and so I know a lot of those actors and love them. But Colleen's always jumped out at me. Something about the character as I was forming it in the back of my mind. I was like, I thought for years I thought I would make this movie in Los Angeles, where I live. But once I had a chance to do it in Wisconsin, I was like, oh, of course, I can do the one person I've been picturing this whole time. And yeah, she brings such there's some actors like that obviously I think they if it's just charm or what it is, but they suck you into their world just even when she's just listening. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Colleen. And I seriously, I wouldn't have made the movie if I couldn't have found if she wasn't available.
She is, to the untrained eye, because I've watched actors all the time, she can give what appears to be the same look, and it can convey very different emotions and very different sort of internal kinds of machinations that she's going through. And she does it so well in this film because she has to maintain this front of no matter how harrowing or how depressing or whatever the news that she is needs to deliver and or present to them as options. She's able to do that in a way, but at the same time, there are these moments when you can see in her face that she's not just an automaton here. She is doing this and she feels something in the process. It's beautifully done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, all the credit to her. She's a fantastic actor.
Let's go back a little bit in terms of describing palliative care because it's sort of a motif in the film that not everyone's aware of why they're sitting there in this,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of they kind of don't know. A lot of them are older and maybe they just aren't quite aware as they used to be, but a lot of them are surprised by what they're going to be told. Fair way to put it.
Yeah, and I think I went through this recently with some family members. And maybe people listening will also know this experience well, that oftentimes what happens in the hospital when somebody's dealing with a serious illness, you are bounced around between different departments, and then that you're being, and it's good, they're all helping, but suddenly you're talking to the social worker and you're kind of like, I don't really understand who you are or what you do. Like, what are we supposed to share with you? I'm mainly thinking about he's got his surgery on Friday or whatever it is. I thought that was interesting, but also palliative care. Even as I go around showing this movie, it's so interesting. It's like 50-50 whether people even know what palliative care is in the first place, which is nuts. It's because like we're all going to end up in that room one day. So,
Yes, and having gone through some version of this with my parents. And that's another thing about the film. By the way, the film is called Winter Hymns, and we're speaking with the director and writer, Nathan Deming, and we're all going to die. It's inevitable. And yet we all deal with that inevitability differently. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you think you're going to live forever. You get to your 40s, you start thinking about things, et cetera, as you get closer. I think one of the value added in this film is if you're watching it, you can't help but think about how will I react? What will be my reaction to hearing what is inevitable? Have you had
mhm.
that experience in screenings? Are you watching people kind of grapple with this? I hadn't thought about it, or I mean, or they're
Oh,
relaying their own version of this.
I think I've heard from people that there are many scenes. Well, I think it just depends, right? Like there's different things that are going to trigger you. And the one I hear about the most is where there's a scene where a father is reading a goodbye letter to his teenage daughters that, wow, I'm getting choked up mentioning it because
That's right.
I'm getting choked up because of the performances, but also just because of thinking about what people have told me about it. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's an experience where like many people go through, and it's so hard to watch. The performances are really nice.
And,
I think there's a lot of things like that that just you don't realize that, oh, that reminds me of what grandma went through or something like that. As for me, I think I'm the English teacher character mostly who is so in denial. I mean, she spends her entire session talking about art and poetry to distract from some practical decisions she has to make. When, hey, I just made a 2.5 hour movie about death and dying to distract myself from the fact that one day I will die. So, yeah.
and I hope that this film, Winter Hymns, is going to get as much distribution as humanly possible. And it really does feel like a film that because these performances, and it's episodic in a way. We're watching over the course of one day, I'm going to say at least a half a dozen different scenarios about how, is that maybe how many are we
You know,
looking?
I don't even know because I because I would say there's like eight signature ones, but then there's obviously the montages and things like that. So yeah.
Right, right. So eight of these different sessions that we're and and they all that's another thing. It presents the spectrum of palliative care. There are people
Hmm.
who are so very close to the end, talking about end of life decisions, power of attorney, and there are others who are being told you're doing pretty well, and we're not sure exactly. Maybe you're not going to die. I mean, there's a sort of hint that maybe you're going to make it through this part.
Hmm.
So we get that range of people in there. I don't know how to say this except having gone through some version of this myself with my family. I just think this you're going to get a lot of people who will be not only relate to it, but going to be talking about this in ways that maybe prompts them to talk to someone in their family because it's done in such a realistic way. That's another thing about this film. There isn't anything in this film that feels like a false note. Like you didn't cheat. You didn't take a shortcut in making this film. Have
Thank
you
you.
we talked a little bit earlier about the reaction to the film, but It's going to be screening out here in Los Angeles, actually in Orange County, California, at the Frida Theater on August 9th. That's a Sunday. I happen to know that because that is my birthday, by the way.
Oh,
And
what a great way to spend your birthday with
well,
me.
believe me, I'm looking forward to it. So if you're here listening to our conversation, you're in Orange County or anywhere near, seek this out.
I think it's 4:30, I think.
Okay, 4:30 screening at the Frida. And by the way, for people who don't know, the Frida Theater in Orange County in Santa Ana is, I think, the best theater in Orange County, California. It is multi-screened, fantastic kind of cross-section of people that go to the films at the Frida. It does a lot of indies and documentaries and foreign films. It's really a great enterprise, and my hat's off to the management there. They're really doing a great job. And you're going to be there for a Q&A
With you, yeah, it'll be
with
great.
me. So looking forward to that. How long did it take you to write this?
Well, like I said, I started it about 7 years ago,
Right, right.
and it went through a couple drafts. I kind of was circling around these core patients for a long
Right.
time.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then honestly, and I can tie this into the reception question too, like how have people been reacting to this? Because I think I've had a hesitancy around this movie through a lot of different drafts where I thought there could be an internal rhythm. I mean, it's one of those things where you write it and you're like, okay, I can't listen to a lot of screenwriting book advice about this one because it's got its own rules, which I like that in the movie where you're like, okay, if these are the rules, I make it work, but like I can't save the cat or do all these things. And I think I had a little bit of a lack of a belief in the idea, honestly, because I just worried about people feeling stuck or feeling too grim. So I've been like blown away by people's response to this movie. The film festival where we premiered, we sold out both our screenings ahead of time, like within an hour when the tickets went live. And then pretty much everywhere we've gone, people linger in the lobby for like 30 minutes afterwards, like talking about it and having these intense conversations you're talking about. So we kind of had an unexpected theatrical run in the Midwest where we come from and where the film's from in the spring. And now that's starting to spread. And I'm surprised, like I just heard back, we opened in a theater in Spokane, Washington last week, and apparently we did great, and we kept adding people every show so that the final show was sold out. Word of mouth was clearly kind of spreading, and that's got me really excited because we're playing now all over the country, including these upcoming SoCal screenings I'm excited about. I'm like thrilled that people are connecting with the themes and like honestly embracing the difficulty of the material. And it's also like I tried to make it not all grim, right? Like there's a little bit of humor, there's a little bit of lightness without it being sentimental or anything. I think I think it's tapping into the fact that we just don't talk about this. We carry these experiences around, they're very heavy. And I think one message of the movie that I didn't really realize it when I was making it is just that by me making it and then you watching it and us sharing it together, both of us get to say, we're not alone. Like you don't go through these experiences alone, which has been very meaningful.
I would liken this film to another medium. Think of this as a jazz album. And
Ooh,
there are
okay.
8 cuts. It's all the same artist, but you're hearing very different tunes, musical tunes that are coming out of that album. You're hearing 8 really good tracks. And they may not sound anything like the one before, but it all sounds good. And I would say that across the board on the different scenarios that we see in this film, whether they start out kind of in a slow way or they come in intense and whatever. At some point along the way, there is I wouldn't call it a resolution necessarily, but a reckoning, an understanding. And there are so many of them I could point to, but yeah, that would say are pretty remarkable. And so I think that for me, if that's a good way, if you're okay with me to describe it as a jazz album with a bunch of
No, I love that. And that's kind of like I think it was kind of interesting to think too. Yeah, I guess it is just variations on a theme. They're all dying, but they're all going through completely different things. And that was a challenge too, right? To just try to make sure that each scene not only was like completely different people, but that they're also going through different things. And we're not just like the drama of each scene isn't the same thing of like, oh, here's just a family arguing, or here's the point of this scene is that she's got to fill out paperwork or something like that. Like finding the dramatic question of each person's life in a way, and then like
Right.
getting it into scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did something that is difficult to do. It's certainly not an easy thing to write, and it's also not an easy thing to execute, which is, I wouldn't say all of these different scenarios have what I'm about to describe, but almost all of them have a moment that kind of catches you up short. It kind of pulls you up, like, whoa. And that's, again, I think that's just it doesn't happen so often that you're waiting for it to happen in the next scenario because not all of them kind of play out the same that in that same way. And it just I think it just gives the film that kind of power. It sort of there's an expectation of what this is going to be about, but having those moments, and I can think of when she met with the two women who she grew up with. That is a particular scenario that was, and the back and forth and the acting in that one is just absolutely superb. I'll just leave it there. People to discover. And there's the priest.
Yeah.
There are so many others over the course of the film where it'll catch you. Well, congratulations. I don't think I've said your name nearly enough. So, Nathan Deming, thank you for your work. Thank you for the writing. I gotta say something also about your cinematographer, because as Leo
Yes, please do.
Perman,
Leo Perman. Yeah.
Leo, and also sound. There's so many different. You're in one room. There's a lot of different elements that have to work for that to be able to be sustained for over 2 hours. You have to do it right. And I thought what you did with your cinematography in this is really exceptional in terms of holding our attention, giving us something to kind of take a breath when we need to. It really worked well.
Definitely shout out Leo because I think he did such a great naturalistic job. It's stylized while still being, there's a mood shift that subtly happens as the day progresses. Like each scene feels different. And then that was also just such a fun challenge. How do we keep this from just being two talking heads, three talking heads, back and forth? And yeah, he just did an amazing job.
And editing. It's another trick is to be able to edit this in such a way to keep a rhythm going
Hmm.
and you're able to do that as well. And I'm a big sound guy. I'm always talking about sound design. And it's not I don't think it's a huge element in the film, but it's significant enough to where you did a great job with just keeping all of those different elements. To me, that's kind of the seasoning in a good film is sound.
Well, so we mixed at Warner Brothers because they believed in the movie, which was awesome. Their post-production services team did. And I was amazed at how much sound could go into it, and then also it still be a pretty quiet experience. And our main approach with that, besides the fact that there's no music and that felt right, was also personally being from the Midwest, and maybe some people listening from cold places will know this. Snow has such a silence because it absorbs sound. So that was like a really good emotional template to start with, that like we take stuff out. But still, you're doing a lot going on in the background.
I lived in Mammoth for a few years.
Okay, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's sound the room sounds different when you've got snow on the windows and snow outside. It does. It just does.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and that's exactly as you described it. Well, Nathan, thank you. Thank you for your work. This is wonderful. Winter Hymns. And again, you can go to the website for the film, and I have
Yeah, the website is winterhymnsfilm.com, and there's a showtimes button, and we're currently next few months playing all over the country, so come find us and
yeah.
join our I was going to try to make a joke about join our fun, but obviously it's an intense
Join
movie,
the
so
party. Yeah,
join
no,
the
I
party,
think.
yeah.
Well, again, if I can't let you go without mentioning Colleen Madden again, because she is great in this film. She just truly is great in this film. My hat's off to her to be able to pull this off in such a way that she did. And your direction certainly had a big impact on it. But all the best to you, man. All the best to you moving forward. I hope you're working on a lot of stuff. I think this is a great. This is your first, I assume, your first national release film, right? Am I correct in that?
Well, my first one was like, released online, but yeah, this is the first time I've done it in theaters, and yeah, very excited.
Well, I look forward in more ways than one. I look forward to seeing you again and your work moving forward and moving forward. Nathan Deming, thank you so very much for spending some time with us here on Cinema File.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.